Hi, this is Mrs. Hatterberg for MNVA Geography, and we're starting today with Unit 3. Unit 3 talks all about demographics, and we're starting with 3.1 Study 1. Please log on and look at all of these little videos of the story of Rabbit Nation for telling you the very beginnings of demography and how can Earth sustain the amount of people. When you get to all the way through to the last part, it'll talk to you about the difference between birth rate and death rate and the carrying capacity for the Earth. Okay, moving on to page 2, human populations. The story of Rabbit Nation demonstrates the most basic concepts of demography, except that demography is the study of human populations, not animal populations. Human populations are a bit more complex, so there are a few concepts of demography that the rabbit story doesn't cover. While rabbits might not mind being packed together as long as there's enough food, people's lives vary depending on how crowded their living situations are. Living in the middle of Manhattan is very different from living in the middle of Wyoming. That's why demographers not only count the number of people in an area, they also calculate population density. This gives us an idea of how crowded a place is, which is a useful piece of demographic information. In addition to birth rate, demographers measure the fertility rate. The fertility rate is the average number of children women have in a lifetime. You've got 3 important vocabulary words here: demography, population density, and fertility rate. Page 3, movement and demography. Human populations can grow and shrink in ways that other than birth and death. Movement is a major cause of population change. Moving to one place is called immigration, then moving away from a place is called emigration. You can remember this from the first letter. Moving away, you're exiting your country, so it's called emigration. Moving into a country, if you're coming into it from somewhere else, you're immigrating. So exit. When people move from one part of the world to another, they are increasing the population of their destination and decreasing the population of where they came from. Every time a person moves, he or she is both an emigrant and an immigrant. The migration rate is the number of immigrants minus the number of emigrants per 1,000 people. A positive migration rate means that there are more people arriving in a place than leaving. A negative migration rate means that there are more people leaving than arriving. Human population grows through a combination of birth and immigration, and the growth of that population is kept down by death and emigration. Page 4. The key concepts of demography. Birth rate is the number of births per 1,000 people per year. Fertility rate is the average number of children women have in a lifetime. Death rate is the number of deaths per 1,000 people per year. Migration rate is the number of immigrants minus the number of emigrants per 1,000 people. Growth rate is the yearly number of births and immigrants minus the number of death rates and emigrants divided by 1,000. Population density is the number of people per square mile. And carrying capacity is the population size that an area can support without destroying its members or environment. This sounds like a lot. It sounds kind of confusing, especially when you read them as quickly as I just did. However, all these are just vocabulary words: birth rate, fertility rate, death rate, migration rate. So make sure you know the difference between all of those things. Page 5. Key concepts in review. You can take your time to go in there and do that little self-quiz. Using census data. Demographers rely on data from a census to figure out things about a population. A census is a count of people in an area, but census also records such traits as gender, age, and income, along with births, deaths, and immigration. Census reports often show key demographic measurement in such as birth rate, death rate, and growth rate. These rates can be used along with total population to figure out such things as the number of births or deaths in a country in a given year. All the rates really are a ratio of one thing to another. Mathematically, you can figure out one part of the ratio if you know the other 3. The diagram above shows how to calculate the number of births in a country with the birth rate of 12.5 and a population of 22 million. The result is 275,000 children born that year. So this is doing all the long math. You will not be asked to do that on the test. Population pyramids. It's important that you do know how to understand and look at a population pyramid. Census data is useful for calculating the rates of birth and death and migration, but it can do more than that. Census takers ask for a lot of information: age, sex, education level, work status, and income, and more. Population pyramids, also known as the age-sex pyramids, are graphs that show the size of different age groups in a population. These graphs typically have pyramid shape because of the number of people in an age group decreases as the age increases. So if you look at this, for instance, in Indonesia, as the age increases, more likely people are to die. So the larger the bar means the more people at that given age. So this is like a perfect representation of a population pyramid where the largest group is at the bottom. This means they have less children being born. Then it swings out the middle age from looks about 20 to 60 is their largest group of population. Population pyramids can reveal trends in growth. Nations that have been industrialized for a long time tend to have shrinking populations. Notice that Germany's pyramid has a wider middle than base. This is a visible presentation of a shrinking birth rate. Page 8. Census data and place. Demographic measurements are more than just numbers. Census data and the calculations performed on it enable demographers to capture a little bit of what life in a particular place is like. Demographic measurements also make comparisons between two or more different places possible. Bangladesh versus Utah. Consider, for example, the demographic data shown below. This table compares Bangladesh with Utah, right here. Whoops. Bangladesh is one of the world's most densely populated countries. It has a birth rate and a fertility rate that's similar to many underdeveloped countries around the world. Utah is the state with both the highest birth rate and the highest fertility rate based on the total area. Birth rate and fertility rate. There is a relatively close comparison between Bangladesh and Utah. Despite these similarities, life in these two places is quite different. As seen by the population density, Bangladesh is much more crowded than Utah. All right, and there you have it. That's the 3.1 Study 1.